Starting tomorrow, Tuesday, April the 23rd, one of Winnipeg's true cultural jewels will be opening up its box offices to audiences as they prepare for another season of presenting the best in theater. For 30 years, Shakespeare in the Ruins has been entertaining and engaging audiences with the works of the Bard and works that are Shakespeare adjacent. Called A Season of Transformation, this 2024 season will see the company perform one of Shakespeare's most performed and beloved works, his hilarious comedy, A Midsummer Night's Dream. That presentation will run from June 6th through to July 6th. Also in this season, Shakespeare in the Ruins will be presenting a brand new play by Canadian playwright Daniel MacDonald. MacDonald's play Iago Speaks is a sequel to Shakespeare's Othello, albeit written more than 400 years later. It tells the story of the villain Iago and, more importantly, the story of Iago's jailer. It breaks the theatrical fourth wall and deals with questions such as, will Iago break free? Will the jailer finally be the protagonist of his own story? What is the point of stories? Why do we keep telling the same old stories repeatedly? It tackles the big questions and so much more. Iago Speaks runs from June 14th through to July 7th. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio to talk about this upcoming season, I am joined by Rodrigo Beilfuss, who is the Artistic Director of Shakespeare in the Ruins. Hi, Rodrigo. Nice to have you here.
Hello. Good to be here.
Before we get to this season, I first came across your name when I interviewed Monique Marker about the play The Year of Magical Thinking, which has just wrapped up at PTE. You directed that play, so you're very much in the theater world. How long have you been artistic director at Shakespeare in the Ruins? And can you talk about your first experiencing watching or being part of the company?
Sure, yeah. I've been the AD at SIR since 2019. Yeah, just before the pandemic. And it's been a very busy ride since. My fifth year now. My first experience with the company was I was hired straight out of university as an actor to be in The Merchant of Venice. I played Bassanio, the young romantic part in that lovely, complicated play. And that was in 2007. Yeah, so that was my first professional gig ever was with SIR. And now I am with the company as the AD. It's been a journey. It's been a journey, yeah.
The SIR productions happen out at the Trappist Monastery out in St. Norbert. What do you enjoy about being out there, and why do you think the venue works so well for theater, particularly Shakespeare?
Well, it nods to the original form of the plays. Shakespeare was in an outdoor setting at the Globe Theatre, the Wooden O, as it's referred to in Henry V. It is very much a play. The plays are in conversation with the elements at all times. Any play you have by him is always in conversation with the elements, with tempests, with the air, with the magic of being the air, with forests. So I think we continue the tradition 400 years later. And it is a unique place, and we do things that can only be done out there, like long shots, actors running, climbing things, jumping, and more importantly, the relationship between the audience and the players. You actually see people, you look them in the eye. Yeah. You have they're on the same playing field. You have this actual interaction. You feel the energy. It goes much, much beyond what we can achieve in a black box indoor setting. You actually are feeling each other's presence and in conversation right there. So all of that is unique, and I think it works beautifully for these plays that are all about sound and sensuality and energy and conversation.
Can you talk about the company? Where do the actors come from, and how do you put together the artistic and technical team? How does that all come together?
It's a long process. We begin auditions in late, around December or early in the year, every year. And we begin assembling designers around then as well. So it's a 6-month, in advance process. Directors are chosen usually a year in advance because people get booked, a year in advance. So it's a mix of conversations that happen a year before the actual event, and auditions that we run at the end of the year, or again in January, February every year. and we just keep on going. And it is a tricky thing, because when we put teams together, we got to make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of like, this is a tough gig. It's physical. You're in the elements. We're rehearsing out there for weeks before we open, and it can be cold and it can be boiling.
Absolutely.
So it's an experience. It's a big, fun summer camp sort of joyous experience. But come out of it fit and tanned, and and it's a very physical. There's nothing intellectual or academic about the process. It's one of actual adventure.
You're calling this season a season of transformation. Can you talk about that, and how does it tie into Iago Speaks and A Midsummer Night's Dream?
Well, in Midsummer, there are obvious transformative elements in it. We're talking fairies, and we're talking Bottom famously becomes an ass. Yeah. And you have this exchange between the supernatural and the natural and the real world, so to speak. Even though nothing is real, it's all a play. So you have these layers of what's theatrical, what's reality, and people being drugged into loving each other.
Yeah.
It's quite the wild, story. So you have, and it plays on our sense and our assumptions that we know who we are and what we like and how much more volatile and unstable,
capricious.
Yeah, we really are as human beings. We love one thing one day and then we dislike that thing the next day, and we don't admit to ourselves how unstable our personalities really are. So the play really plays on that idea of transformation, right? And Iago Speaks, it's about Shakespeare itself transformed. It's a contemporary comedy, a Canadian comedy that continues an English play from 4 centuries ago. So we're transforming our very idea of what a protagonist and a bit player is. Iago is not the main character in it. So we play on these layers of what is theater and what is not theater, and how can we all... And again, the ultimate goal is that an audience leaves these plays feeling like they were transformed in a way.
Totally. I have to say, Midsummer Night's Dream is, I think, the perfect play to be performed in the Ruins. It will be the summer. It takes place outdoors. In the play, as we've talked about, you've got woods, fairies, love, magical potions, and you got to love a good Athenian wedding. The Ruins seem like the perfect backdrop for the play, right?
I think so. It takes place in a forest. And it's we're right there. We're really in the forest. We're really in the elements. I think it's the most perfect play for that setting. It really is.
Yeah, totally. One of the things that Midsummer Night's Dream has is it's a play. There's a play within a play, right? Although it's a terrible one. It's presented by the Mechanicals. Are costumes an issue for Midsummer Night's Dream? I mean, not only of the actors within the play, but I'm also thinking of Bottom being turned into an ass. Can you talk about the costumes? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a unique process for us because the designers always think about the elements. So we usually work with layers. So we have versions of the costumes that are for very hot days, or versions of the costumes we can add layers. If it has been raining and it's a bit muddy or wet, actors can wear, rain boots and rubber boots. So we have different versions of things, and the designers come into the process really thinking about layers and the heat and the wetness, and the take we're going for with Midsummer is the idea of theater itself. So we have Puck at the beginning of the play conjuring up the actors, our own actors, would then gather and come together with an audience, and then Puck will have a costume trunk, or like a little thing, bits and bobs of pieces of costumes and props with him, and then the actors will basically become the characters and find color in nature, and the color and the exuberance of nature is the magic of the world. So then they will transform themselves from actors into characters. And of course, then you have actors playing characters, right? So you have all these layers. And of course, in Shakespeare's time, you had men playing women, playing men. So you have all these, again, layers of transformation. And again, in Shakespeare's time, all of his productions were done in modern dress, modern for his time.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as Shakespearean costumes. If anything, if you want to continue a Shakespearean tradition, you want to have them in contemporary costumes.
Yeah.
So we have, bits and bobs of all kinds of periods that we're mixing into this world of the Athenian forest. So it's about color, finding color and exuberance in a natural setting.
Fantastic. Midsummer Night's Dream is extremely popular with audiences. Why do you think it resonates so well with them? And do you think it's a good play to introduce younger audiences to Shakespeare?
I think it's the perfect play because it is both incredibly silly and also incredibly erudite and poetic. It has the divine and the base playing with each other at all times. You have exuberant biblical language, and Titania has an amazing speech about the elements changing and climate change. It's an incredible speech about climate change and how we're ruining nature. And then you cut to idiots putting on a play, who can barely put a sentence together. And it is just it is, as far as we know, an original work. He wasn't basing on anything that was previously done. He was a great adapter, Shakespeare, and a borrower and a stealer of stories. But this one is close to his heart. It's an original story. So it has everything. It has different groups of characters. It has royalty, and it has commoners, and it has actors, and it has fairies. So it's the best of everything.
I think whenever I think of the love potions, I always think it's a bit like a farce, just this sort of mistakes upon mistakes upon mistakes.
Yeah.
The other play this season is Daniel MacDonald's play Iago Speaks. My understanding is that it's been performed once before in Saskatoon.
That's
MacDonald,
right.
I think, is from Saskatoon.
From Saskatoon, yeah.
How did you hear about him in the play?
Well, it was directed by a Winnipegger, Krista Jackson, who is a friend and who is now in Montreal. I was working with a Saskatchewan company on a co-production a couple years ago, The Dark Lady, which we did last year. And I was there visiting, and it was their opening night. So I got to see the opening, the world premiere of Iago Speaks, and I loved it. I thought it was fascinating. And then 2 years later, I thought, hey, what if we bring that play back in a new setting, in a new version for Winnipeg audiences? And that's what we're doing. I just loved it, and it was sort of like in my mind for a couple of years. And it's a sad thing in Canadian theater that we don't always revive the new plays we produce. We pump them out quite often. There are new plays all the time, but we don't usually do a follow-up. And I think plays need more than one production to really know what they are. So we wanted to bring this play back for a Winnipeg audience with a Winnipeg team, and that's what we're doing.
My understanding is the play deals mostly with Iago's jailer, and it breaks the fourth wall with audiences. What is the point of stories? Why do we keep telling the same old stories repeatedly? How does the play do that? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, we begin the play, and Iago is in his jail cell. He's there and he's brooding, he's quiet, because he says in Othello, I will never speak word again. Don't ask me why I was a villain. I'm quiet for eternity now. And then then the jailer comes in, and he is sort of like the embodiment of all these characters that Shakespeare wrote without names. Officer number 3, soldier number 3, spear holder number 8. There's a boy, a soldier. There's always one of those unnamed characters, the others in Shakespeare. And he represents that. He is the jailer. And he wakes up from almost as if from a dream, and he's confused as to where he's at. And he feels like he's been doing this before. He's done this before, and he's been doing this forever. And then piece by piece, he tries to understand why he's there in this dungeon with a quiet Iago, and why there is an audience watching him, and why he has no name. Okay. So he's having this awakening as a character into the real world, going like, what is happening? Who are you watching me? What's the point of me? Why am I here? Who am I? And then piece by piece, he kind of remembers, bit by bit, he remembers his purpose. But then he wants to be more than just a jailer. He wants to be the hero of his story. And then he enlists Iago, of all people, to help him find the point of his presence in this story.
Yeah.
And Iago, of course, Iago is a sneaky one.
Yeah.
So you have to come
Does
see
does
what happens.
Does he backstab him?
Well, there might be some stabbing because Iago will be Iago, but come see how the jailer gets around that.
Mm-hmm. You're directing both productions this year, and you were saying that directors are chosen a year prior. Is that normal for Shakespeare in the Ruins, and does it create any challenges for you?
It's a huge challenge, and the decision came in for two reasons. One is financial reasons. It's a tough year for many companies, as you know.
Yeah.
There are deficits we're operating with, and I don't cost anything to the company as the AD. I can abuse myself as much as I can.
Yeah.
So we decided to sort of try this system this year. We're doing them in rep, which means we're rehearsing them at the same time. We split schedules. I have a great associate director, Matt, who will be assisting me on this. So we can split rooms and go back and forth between Iago and Midsummer. So that was the practical decision, right? A financial decision out of necessity. But also creatively, it was very exciting because we have the same designers, the same stage managers, the same director, and two of the actors who are in Iago Speaks will also appear in Midsummer. So you can come see Arne and Josh as Iago and the jailer, and you come back to Dream and you see them as Oberon and Bottom.
Nice.
And the jailer and Bottom, if you come in, you'll see it, they are basically made of the same stuff.
Yeah.
There's even a scene where they kind of say the same lines even. So I wanted to create a unified universe assembled by the same team and the same actors. So creatively it was very exciting. And it is hugely challenging because of scheduling and practicalities. And do we have enough time to rehearse? And we will see. We'll begin this week.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Rodrigo, the season sounds like it's going to be just another great season. Tickets go on sale tomorrow. Where can people go to get more details on how to get tickets?
ShakespeareinTheRuins.com. And you can get a 15% off discount if you buy them early enough with our early bird discount. Just go online and you can get them right there.
Perfect. Rodrigo, this has just been so great to have you here today telling us about the 2024 season of Shakespeare in the Ruins. The play sounds like they're going to be just fantastic. Thanks for taking the time to stop by and talk to me today.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for having me.